Hey everyone, welcome to the Revillager podcast. This is our fifth session in an ongoing live interview series as part of our Revillager Kickstarter, which is live now with just 10 days to go. Today we have the honor of talking to Sheleana Aiyana. Sheleana is a spiritual writer, conscious relationship teacher, and the founder of Rising Woman, from which she has a growing community of over 3 million readers. She shares about cultivating conscious and healthy relationships, as well as learning to heal trauma in a holistic way. She's the author of the best-selling book, Becoming the One, Heal Your Past, Transform Your Relationship Patterns, and Come Home to Yourself, a book that takes you on the journey of deep inner healing and transformation. She's also a dear friend of many years, an extremely talented and beautiful mother, wife, and human. So super excited to have her for this special live stream. Hi, Shay.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So just to put it out there, so this isn't secret, we're actually in the same house, divided by one door. We were on a little forest walk, catching up and doing this way for the purpose of this interview. But it's been really nice to see Shay, and like I said, we go way back, and I got to see her kind of create Rising Woman, which now is quite an amazing thing, and so many people, especially women that I run into and meet, speak so highly of you, Shay, and it's really beautiful to feel that and to know you. And I also want to give away a secret that Revillager wouldn't exist without Shay. And I say that because she literally connected myself and my co-founder Santi. Without her connecting us, Revillager would have never been born. So you're a big reason this has all happened, and this is happening now. And so it's a real pleasure and treat to get to connect with you. And this is going to be a short and sweet little interview, about half an hour. So we're going to get right into it, right into the juicy topics. I'd love to nuance and go over everything. Maybe in the future we'll have another podcast, but
we can do this again.
Yeah. For now, a lot of your work is around conscious relationship. And I'm curious how you define conscious relationship, and how does that apply to relationship outside of romantic partnerships, whether that be friends or community or family?
I feel that the definition of conscious relationship is often misconstrued. We usually think, oh, well, a conscious relationship, it must be about two people in a romantic context. And while that can be true, I see it as the relationship that we have to ourselves and to our own mind first, and then the relationships that we have with others. And so there's the conscious relationship that we have to our own mind, the relationship that we have with others, and then the world around us, and the relationship to spirit as well. So there's sort of this circular thing with all of these different relationships that go around the wheel. And when I think about the difference between a conscious relationship and perhaps just a more conventional relationship, let's not call it unconscious relationship, then I would say the only difference really is that in the conscious relationship, we're doing the work of taking responsibility for what's going on internally. We're becoming more aware of our internal experience on a nervous system level, on a consciousness level. And rather than living in a constant projection, we're owning our experience. And then we're doing the deeper work of bringing that vulnerably to the surface in a safe container so that we can heal rather than continue to repeat patterns. That's sort of how it works.
Well said. Succinct. It's like you've been thinking about this a lot.
I've only answered the question a few times.
That's my only generic question, I swear. So the next piece of that for me is, I've noticed that there's this huge emphasis in self-development work around the individual. And that makes sense because we're in an individualistic culture, and it really does start with the individual. Like, I really do agree with that and believe that. And you see it in self-development, but also in spirituality. It's kind of like, be the change your own mind and the world will change. Eat the right thing, read the right thing, do the right thing, and that will take care of everything. but I feel like there's been this shift from that kind of very isolated personal work into relationship work, which
Mm,
is incredible. Like I'm going to actually do the work with someone else. And then I'm curious like how that can expand further, like as you're doing the conscious relationship work, can you then start to bring it into groups, and like conscious interrelationship? And I speak to this because obviously community and village is a lot of that. And I think that's one of the places community and village break down,
for sure.
is doing the work in this weird web of relationship.
Yeah, it's one of the deterrents for all of us. It's the reason that people choose fences rather than open
Mm-hmm.
fields because they're like, I don't want to deal with the drama of Betsy next door, you know? But ultimately we need each other, so we have to learn how to do that. And it's a balance too of finding ways to co-create and to communicate and to collaborate without becoming martyrs or without falling into those family system patterns that we all know where one person becomes the rescuer, then we have somebody who's the victim, and then we have somebody who's, you know, just creating drama in the community because that's how they know how to get love. And so when we add the community element, what really happens is that all of our family system wounds begin to play into each other's. And so we essentially step into those old roles again that we know so well, which is why community is so hard. Now, when I'm going back to the kind of the original question, what I see is that there's this almost like Buddhist flair to a lot of the spiritual work out there that's like you are the creator of your reality and you just need to heal yourself and all of your feelings and your needs you need to take care of on your own, and nobody else is responsible for what you feel.
Mm.
And I just don't really believe that because unless you're going to go meditate on a mountain and actually be a monk or a nun and not be in relationship, then of course you're going to be impacted by the other people that are around you. Of course, somebody can impact the way that you feel. If somebody walks up to you and insults you, you're going to have a feeling about that. And that's not something that you're responsible for creating in that moment. And so you're right, there is this shift toward relationship work, but it can still be hyper individualistic in the sense that we take this hyper spiritual lens where we say, okay, well, you're in conscious relationship now, but you need to be 100% responsible for your own mind and your own emotions, which is true. And, there's nothing that your partner can say or do that can make you feel anything. It's all you. But when we understand the nervous system and how we co-regulate, even just as infants, we need another nervous system to learn how to regulate. And when we learn what it's like to be a human, where we're designed to be in connection with others, to feel safe and to provide for each other in the ways that we know how, we know that being in relationship is a deep human need. We do
Mhm.
impact each other greatly, and it's super important that we learn how to be well for each other and for ourselves, and that we take things to a deeper level rather than saying, "Oh, well, you're just responsible for you, so I can just be a dick and it doesn't matter," which is kind of how it works a lot of times when we get really deep into the spiritual work. We're like, "Well, that's your projection, not mine."
Mhm.
And so how can we start to develop deeper empathy for the relationships that we have? How can we start to co-create and be responsible for being allies in each other's healing? And sometimes that actually means sitting down and talking about what roles you're each playing out from your own family systems, which obviously I think you have done a lot of this work as well as I have, in a community setting or even with your business partners, uh,
Mhm.
so that you can unravel some of that stuff and heal together. But it's confronting and hard, and a lot of communities don't have those tools. And so that's why
Mhm.
we have the nuclear family. It's a lot safer in some ways, but then it puts all this pressure on us to do it all ourselves.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I think about it that way, like so many of the relationships we have in our life in Western culture are these individualistic relationships. We go to the doctor, to
Yep.
see myself and work on that healing and therapist and all that. Whereas in villages, I'm sure that that was a communal experience. There was rituals for the community, and I know at least in the Hawaiian indigenous way, like one person's sickness or problem was everybody's problem,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably true across the board in a lot of old cultures and still present ones.
Mhm.
So yeah, the collectivism there is just such a shift. Um, so yeah, so thinking about that, I I see you as a very powerful woman. You're a founder, a mother, a wife, and you know Santi and I were talking about this idea and word of matriarch and
Mm.
how we feel you to be uh, a matriarch, and that word can have a lot of different meanings.
Yeah.
For us, it's a very positive thing, and when we're looking back again, kind of in time, but also at other cultures presently, we see a lot more of the matriarchal influence
Yeah.
and the way that leadership came from the feminine and came from women in a really positive way for the community and really held the social fabric in a lot of ways. And that was often in harmony with a patriarch or a
Mhm.
patriarchal model. And again, I'm speaking to the village patriarch
Yeah.
being not a negative thing like the patriarchy that is society that people point to a lot, but the ways in which healthy patriarchy and healthy matriarch cultures could live in harmony.
Mhm.
Um, and because you're leading a community of like millions, like empowering women, like how does it show up for you to bring back matriarchy in a good way? And then also,
Yeah.
I mean, we can go into motherhood after that, but how is it showing up for you in community?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the whole conversation right now around patriarchy being evil, and then this absence of matriarchy, I feel it's we're on the far end of the pendulum swing. Like we've yet to find balance, and I feel that it's misplaced. We're misguided in the way that we relate to a lot of these topics, and what I see is very similar to what you brought, which is that there was a patriarch and there was a matriarch, and there was this, it's this king and queen leadership energy. There is this collaboration, and there was an honoring of our differences. And of course, I don't want to glamorize all of history. I mean, if you look at all of
Mhm,
history, there's always chaos and
mhm,
violence. Like there was no utopia ever, and there never will be. All we
mhm,
can do is be our best, right? Um, so that's something that I see a lot as we try to go backwards, but I don't think we can. We can look at history and we can look at certain communities or villages that exist now or that did exist and take some of the things that they're doing amazingly well and apply that to now, but we really do have to find new ways to move forward. And what I see is that being a matriarch is really about being mother energy for the community while also leading through taking care of oneself and really being self-honoring and remaining in integrity with our relationships, our relationship to our bodies, our relationships to our minds, our relationship to the earth that we tend to and that we borrow. And it's not about competition. So I really see this desire right now for a lot of people to just sort of kick the patriarchy out. Right? There's a lot of anger and hatred toward it.
mhm,
Um, and for you and I were talking earlier about the matriarchy to take over. But what if we were able to co-create from a place of mutual respect and mutual vision for what we actually want to see in our communities and in our world rather than getting sucked into the politics and the echo chambers that we exist in right now. And I mean, truthfully, as someone who runs an online community, people think, oh well, you're running this huge community, but it's taken a life of its own, and I'm writing and I'm sharing with millions of people. But how each person works with that or interprets that work is really out of my hands because it's on the internet. So it feels a lot different for me to bring this work online versus the way that it feels when I'm in a smaller container in a group online even or in person. And so that's what I love the most is inspiring people to go out into their own communities, in their own homes, in their own families and bring this work there. Bring the love and the intention and the presence to the places that matter the most, which is at home with our families, with the community, with the people that we actually sit down for dinner with. And that's something that many of us have lost and that I would really love to see us all reclaim. And that's even one of the things that I love about where I live is everything closes at 5 or 6 and I'm like, "Okay, well, that can be inconvenient, but it's also wonderful that everybody gets to go home and eat dinner with their family." Um, and so I hope that kind of answers your question in a roundabout way, but I feel like we could just talk about that forever, and the answer would never be clear because right now it feels like we're just kind of lost at sea.
Mhm.
I don't feel that there is a clarity of mind right now in the collective around this topic because even what we see as patriarchy being evil or this really bad energy, to me, what we're really talking about is an imbalance of power and
Mhm.
unwell behavior. But I wouldn't say that that is patriarchy. Patriarchy is just leadership. It's like father energy, just like matriarchy is just leadership, mother energy, right? And so we can tap into the divine mother and father, or we can tap into the shadow, and that's a choice.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective and what you spoke to of really figuring this out in a new way
Mhm.
because yeah, there is this glamorization of the past and there is this like reaching back for something,
Yeah.
and then at the same time not being able to pull it forwards and still have it make sense.
Mhm.
It's so contextual to what's happening now. And obviously, we're in this like very weird time where there is just culture wars in every direction and identity wars. And a lot of it I feel is being amplified by technology and
Yes.
amplified on purpose because it does keep us busy fighting with each other instead of thinking about class and
Yeah.
other things that are going on in the world. Um, and yeah, and it's been an interesting healing journey for myself, kind of coming to terms with what patriarchy is as
Mm.
a father. It's only recently that I was even okay with that word being placed on myself,
Mhm.
a patriarch. And matriarch is it's just a word I don't hear very often.
Yeah.
It's I think both of those things have been lost, and I'm just curious about how to bring them into this modern context.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe that's a great segue into motherhood
Yeah.
because you're a pretty new mom,
Mhm.
and we had a really cool experience, my wife and I, and you and Ben, um, conceiving around the same time, traveling together during that time, being with each other during pregnancy, you know, now having baby girls together that are super close, and I'm sure we'll be super close as they grow up. And even going further back than that, like we got married a week apart. We were at each other's
Yeah.
marriages, which, both of our marriages really felt like village.
Mhm.
It was really that context, which again is kind of like a reach back of like, oh yeah, that's why marriage exists. It was a communal thing.
Yeah.
And now we're going into parenthood, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a communal thing. Like your blessing way for your baby was so beautiful because it was the village and planting a tree and praying, and it was just, yeah, everything that makes sense to me.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd love to hear how it's been being a mom and what that's brought up for you, in life and in your work, and how that relates to community.
Yeah. The thing that it surprised me the most when I entered my postpartum period, I mean, of course, I was having my own experience with, my own stuff from my birth and all of that. But the thing that I didn't expect was to grieve so deeply for all of the mothers who couldn't be with their babies, all of the mothers who had to go back to work right away, all of the babies who didn't have parents who were able to be there for them in an attuned way. A lot of grief and sadness for my own mother when she was a baby. There's this real magnifying glass that happened for me as soon as I had this innocent, tiny, precious being that was so beautiful and pure and so dependent on me to help her feel comfortable, help her feel safe, make sure she was fed, make sure that she didn't feel scared, and just the weight of that. And I felt so much grief for the disconnection that we have in our culture where moms are expected to go back to work after a few weeks or a few months and they're putting babies in daycare at 3 months. I remember when Soraya turned 3 months, I was in this haze of grief because it was around that time where I realized in the US, a lot of moms were going back to work and having to put their babies in daycare. And this little tiny being, and I'm looking at her and I get to spend all day with her because I'm having this privileged experience of living on land and working from home for myself and being home all day and just imagining having to take her and give her to a daycare. And it just crushed me, and I was like, "Wow, this is heavy stuff." And, I've always cared about mothers and I've cared about families, but there's something different once I actually stepped onto the mother path and embodied it fully, where I realized how deeply broken our systems are. And gosh, it makes me wish that I had the power to change it. I'm like, if I knew that I could enter into the political sphere and I could actually change this, I for sure would. Because it's just the most heartbreaking thing. And so becoming a mother for me has really brought me so close to the lack of support that our communities have, the amount of privilege that goes into just mothering and nurturing my daughter the way that I get to do. And it shouldn't be that way, that it's a privilege or that it's a sign of wealth or that it's a sign of having enough that you get to have secure attachment with your child. I'm like, how flawed is that? Should be a human right. Everybody should have access to food. Everybody should be able to nurture their baby for as long as their baby needs them. So it's just been very intense in that way. I didn't expect to feel so much grief constantly. Of course, there's the impermanence and the existential experience and all of the other things that come with being a mom. But on a village level, it's made me want to do more. And I'm working behind the scenes on a project for my community here on Salt Spring that I haven't announced or shared yet. Actually, I didn't even tell you about it on our walk, but I will. But it's inspired me, to do what I can on a village level. And I've realized too how much in my life I've always wanted to help. And so I create these really big visions. And sometimes they're great. Like Rising Woman's a big vision. But when it comes to doing the work that I wanna do, for example, I would love to feed the whole world, but I can't feed the whole world, but I can feed some people, right? And so it's remembering that our impact is so much greater when we focus on the communities that we actually live in and where we help even just our neighbors. And if we all helped our neighbors, the world would be a better place, and we would have wealth and health and connection, and we could thrive. So, I mean, that's why I love what you and Santi are doing, and that's why I support this so much because I feel that great need for it. I know how much it matters. And once you become a parent, you realize more than ever that it's impossible to thrive without support because you are sacrificing so much for this little being, and it's important to do that. But if you don't have any help, like a single mother or a single father, they'll have to decide sometimes between letting their baby cry and having a shower for 2 minutes. And and that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with because we've lost connection to the community. And so hopefully through Revillager and through this mission, we can change that again.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. There's no love that you ever feel until you're a parent quite like it.
Yeah.
And there's also no pain and grief you really feel until becoming a parent.
Yeah.
And it's, you can describe it and share it, but you just really can't know it until you experience it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think about single moms and how insanely hard that must be, and especially in our in an urban Western culture setting, a low income single mom in an apartment building.
Mhm.
It's already hard enough, even with the community.
Yeah.
um, and definitely for myself, this whole path of revillaging and wanting village was becoming a parent and realizing that saying "it takes a village to raise a child"
Yeah.
actually had meaning. It's kind of thrown around like a cliche, but it's real. It's
It
super
is.
real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you start to feel that pain really deeply when you're a parent. And what I've noticed is a lot of my parent friends have made moves, usually out of cities, but in any way towards community,
Yeah.
towards other families. And that really was the birthplace of Revillager, was trying to get families and kids and elders together as well. There was an elder once told me that, a good sign of a culture is how they treat their elders and their kids,
Mm.
and like, and then we look at Western culture and how that works. And it's like,
Very
oh yeah,
Yeah.
very sick. Exactly. Um, yeah. So, I mean, building community around everyone obviously is important, but serving parents is massively important and dear to my heart. And I appreciate your words on that. And having spoken to a few parent groups and parent therapists, child
Mhm.
therapists who are coming on to Revillager, it's like, yes, like, let's create more village as fast as we can
Yeah.
around children.
Yeah, get the aunties and the uncles and all of the people together, I have
Yeah.
as you know, I have a house full of women all the time, and they're all younger than me, and so none of them have kids, and they're in a different life phase, and they're super happy to play with my baby so I can come upstairs and do a call with you and take her outside to play in the trees or sing silly
Hmm.
songs in the kitchen with me and let me go have a shower, little things that matter so much. And they also, a few of them are very passionate about working with elders and seniors. And so it's this reciprocity that we want to bring back where we actually know our neighbors' names and their food allergies and their phone numbers. And, we can pass eggs through the fence and ask if they need anything from town and just really be together in
Mm.
that sense again. And that's what we're doing our best to co-create here. And I think it's really the solution to so much of our pain and so many of our problems. It can all be solved by revillaging. It actually can.
Mm. Yeah, and from the local level out, like you were saying, like, if we want to make these big change, we've got to start with this very intentional, localized effort, and then that ripples out and connects to all the other ripples. And yeah, it's a powerful movement, a powerful idea, and so appreciate what you're doing in the world on all the levels. Your land here is so special, and your connection to the land and your connection to your family and to community, and yeah, just to the wisdom that you carry and offer and share. It means a lot to a lot of people and myself. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to be here today, and I look forward to more conversations. Please check out Rising Woman if you haven't already,
Mhm.
and Becoming the One, an incredible book that
Mhm.
Shay released not too long ago.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then also check out our Kickstarter. We have 10 days left
Yeah.
to come get to our goal. We're almost there. I think we're at 80%.
Yeah.
Um, Go to that link and check out Revillager.
Nice.
And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. And yeah, I look forward to revillaging with you in all the ways.
Me too. Love you, buddy. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, love you too.